Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the channel. My name is Sal Vetri, and today we're going to be covering a little NBA strategy before the season kicks back up after the All-Star break, depending on when you're watching this. It's 2019. So what we're going to be covering is NBA contrarian strategy, how to be contrarian or what contrarian even is in the NBA. If this is your first time here, my name is Sal Vetri. Welcome to the channel. We cover the NFL, NBA, and MLB in the daily fantasy sports streets. I've had great growth over the past few months, and I appreciate all the returning subs so much. If you're new here or whether you're returning, if you hit that thumbs up button, it helps me out a ton, pushes me up the rankings, lets more people see me, and just really spread this little brand that I'm trying to build and just grow this community as well. And if you are new here, if at any point you get value from this video, please hit subscribe. There'll also be a strategy PDF that goes right along with being contrarian. You can download it for free at any time. I created it about a month or two back. So thank you guys so much. We're gonna just hop into this video on how to be contrarian. And before I do, we're streaming live right now on Twitch. We have about 20 people in the chat. I take questions beforehand, afterhand. We do Twitch exclusive stuff like a bankroll challenge that we're going to be starting up, reviewing my lineups from the night before. So if that's something that you want to check into, my cash game lineups, we review them. So come over there, hang out, you could chat. There's a link down below. If you hit the little follow button, you'll be notified on Twitch of when I go live. So let's start it up by just covering contrarian, and I have a little spreadsheet like I did yesterday, or a little tips sheet on what I should cover and just remind myself basically. So I'll be looking over at it. So what is contrarian and what are the benefits? Contrarian just means being different, and it doesn't mean being different in terms of playing sucky players, right? It's different in terms of setting yourself up to have that one unique lineup. So if you do ever hit or you come close to hitting, you're going to be winning more money than you would if you split it with 1,000 people or whatever it might be. And if you are having a lineup similar to other people, odds are you're building a very chalky lineup, or it might even just be a public type lineup. Public uses their emotions, recency bias, things, what have you done for me lately type players. And that just probably means you're not building a good sound lineup. So being contrarian just means being different, but not being different in terms of sucking or trying to make a bad lineup. Being different in terms of being optimal. The optimal contrarian is what I like to call it. What are the benefits? And it's obvious, is you're building a unique lineup. Unique lineups are the ones that are different than anybody else. So when your players start to go off, you jump people more in the rankings because nobody else has that same lineup. So ways to be contrarian. The video that we had out yesterday on lineup construction, that's a start, right? You have to understand the slate. You have to keep up with the news, and a lot of people in the NBA streets do this because it's daily. They love the hustle. So if you're doing this, you're at least jumping some of the field, more of the fishier, amateur type players. So keeping up with lineup construction, go back, watch that video so you get an understanding. Leaving money on the table on smaller slates, I'll briefly touch on. That's a good way to be contrarian. If you're leaving $500+ on the table in the NBA, it's hard to stomach sometimes, but on smaller 4-game or less slates, even 5-game slates, potentially 6-game slates, but I wouldn't even go there. Leaving money on the table can be optimal, but it doesn't mean leave money on the table if it doesn't allow you to get to that next player that you really like. Leave money on the table if you have a lineup that you like, and getting up to the next highest price guy doesn't do anything for you. Nobody likes to do that. Think about it in your head right now. If there was $600 left on the table, wouldn't you try and spend it? Yes, but if you have a lineup you feel good about, most people are probably going to try and spend it, so you'll probably get a unique lineup. So that's a way to do, just in general, how to be contrarian without really giving up anything, right? You're actually being more optimal if the way you built your lineup makes you more comfortable with leaving money on the table. Don't try and just spend it for the heck of it. It doesn't really matter at that point. Pivoting from ownership to other solid options. So obviously ownership's the biggest thing with being contrarian. In cash games, you don't really have to be. You should never try and be contrarian. You should try and play the chalky guys because you're at too much leverage if you're not playing them, if they are good chalk. In tournaments, if you're entering only a few lineups, like 3 in a big max, 20 max, 50 max, 150 max, you should try and be super contrarian. You should try and fade all the chalk, whether it's good or bad chalk. You should try and fade the guys who are going to be 50% owned because you already don't have leverage. Somebody's entering 150 lineups that they feel good about to your one or 2 or 3 lineups that you feel good about. You have no leverage there. They're just absolutely dominating you in terms of how many more lineups they have. But if you fade all the chalkier players that they probably have a lot of, you're in a position now where if something doesn't go right for them and that player, that you're now automatically in the top 50% if that guy was 50% owned. So fading the chalk if you're entering few lineups is good. Fading the chalk if you're entering single entries or things like that isn't necessary, I would say. If you're entering 3 maxes, 20 maxes, and you're entering all 20, it's still probably not necessary if it's good chalk. How do you identify that? Lots of things, right? Usage rates. Are they a point guard, center? Where are they going to start? Obviously, more guys at the point guard and center position is what you want. But understanding ownership is huge. And to go along with ownership, and it's good and important to know. You should know really what the ownership's looking like. You can kind of get a sense for that on your own if you pay for a package. There's some that are pretty good. I know Awesome is pretty good in projecting ownership. They just take a bunch of things, and all systems do, on social media, and how many people, they have a targeting system, how many times a certain player was mentioned in a good or bad context, and then you can kind of see what the public's going to do based off of that, based off of what the media is talking about. But in terms of ownership, to win a tournament in the NBA, you can have guys at 100% owned in your lineups if you're entering 20. You can do that. You just really need that one guy who's lower owned than the rest. It doesn't mean playing 8 low owned guys. That's probably not going to get you there. They're low owned for a reason. But identifying maybe in your lineup where you can pivot away from a guy who's a little bit iffy, but he's going to be higher owned for whatever reason. The public likes to jump on specific players, whether they've just been hot as of late, they have a good matchup, whatever it might be. If you feel iffy about that, go to the lower owned guy. He could be the exact same price. He could be just as good of a player, but maybe he's only 1 or 2% owned on that slate instead of 15. Now you're setting yourself apart. It doesn't mean just playing a bunch of 1 or 5% players being contrarian. It means just finding that one spot that you can fully take advantage of. So a lot of people get that confused. They think that you have to play bad players or just punt plays. Don't play bad players. Manny Laura, if you follow him on Twitch, if you're watching this, he's great at this. Play good players. Why would you want to play a guy who might get 20 minutes and you're really hoping just to see him shoot the ball once, like Manny says in football, just really hoping that he gets one target in the game, when you can just be playing the good players and be more balanced and just build your lineups better, right? So that's just, people get really confused about ownership. They try and go super extreme when you really don't have to be extreme at all. You can really win your entire lineup with a chalky build in the NBA. Obviously, setting yourself apart to be more optimal, though, and being that one unique lineup takes a little bit more work. And some of the things we're talking about and we'll talk about will help you with that. So yeah, play good players. Manny Laura, I have it in here as well. That's just very simple. That's what Manny says. Only in max entry tourneys do you need to think hard about this. Yes, so ownership max entry is where you have to think the hardest about it. That's what I was going for there. Single entry, you could approach it similar to cash. Single entry, you can fade maybe a higher owned guy. You should probably, if he seems like bad chalk in any format, outside of potentially cash. So game stacking 4 to 5 players from a game. Many know how to do this. So yeah, so in terms of if you're entering a lot of lineups or a good amount, you want to have a certain amount with groups. So groups are just specific players that every single time you build a lineup, you can have 5 lineups with this specific group. You can do those on your own, or you could use a paid servicer, whether it's Fantasy Cruncher, Fantasy Labs, whatever it is. But putting those in there, it definitely sets yourself apart, because the more groups you have, a lot of people, don't do it. Even though they know about it, they don't feel comfortable doing it. So you're automatically building that unique lineup, and that's what we're going for. We're going for a unique lineup that is still optimal. We're not going for a unique lineup filled with $3,000 players, because that's obviously going to be unique. We're going for a unique, optimal lineup. I just want to stop quick and say, if you're still watching, please hit that like and subscribe button if you're new here or returning. Appreciate you guys so much. And hit us up on Twitch. It's fun over here, the interactive nature. And if you are a sub on Twitch, you get access to the private Discord. Questions for me, I usually go rogue around when the lock's about to come up in NBA, because I'm trying to get as much news and stuff about my lineups. But for the Discord, that takes priority. I'll answer those questions. And you also get my player projections. That just comes along with the Discord. People weren't getting paid for the Discord, so yeah, definitely hit that up. So yeah, fade bad chalk because people overreact to news. So in the NBA, this is a little bit less relative, but it still is. There's a lot of news in the NBA, so people overreact to a lot of it, especially the late news. And usually it's warranted because it's affecting a lot of people's lineups. But a lot of times people will overreact and automatically plug and play a guy because he's cheap and now he's starting, even though that guy might not really get a minutes increase. You want to look for the guys who are going to get the biggest role changes due to injuries. Role changes does not necessarily mean that a starter is a good player. A starter might just be getting a spot start and play 10 minutes in the game, and he's a 0.6 fantasy points per minute guy anyways, and he just got you 6 points, right? Something like that. That's an extreme case, but look for the guys who are going to see the biggest minutes bumps. You could use NBA Wowie, a good tool that we've talked about in past strategy shows on this YouTube channel. You could use NBA Wowie to figure out usage rates, where minutes go. Just make sure you're playing with big minutes or big samples in terms of the sample size, so you know that it's realistic. But yeah, fading bad chalk is a good thing, especially when it's just based on people's overreactions and emotions. But on the flip side of that, the best way to gain an edge is if you're sitting by your laptop at 6:55 and some insane news breaks like Nerlens Noel a few weeks back, And you can get him into all of your lineups if he's a great play, because you're automatically going to have way more than the field if you have 100%, 90%, 80%, because people can't react that fast. They might be able to react with like a 20% change or a 30% change in that amount of time, but you're going to get a huge leverage over the field. And again, leverage is just how much more or less ownership that you have on a specific player. That's your leverage, and obviously you want it to be good leverage, but the outcome is going to determine whether it's good or bad. So don't overreact to the news, or try not to as much as other people do. Even if it is a great move, don't try and overreact to it and be like, this is insane. Just think through it, right? Especially if you're entering limited lineups, this is a good spot to just fade a player like that. If it seems like bad chalk, if it seems like good chalk and you're entering 5 lineups, get him in all of your lineups, because late news is great, whether you're trying to fade it because 20% more people are going to hop on that bad player, or whether you're trying to roll with it because not enough people can hop onto that player. Again, like only 20% ownership will change there. We already talked about focusing on role changes. I think that's huge in the NFL. Mainly, people try and just jump on that new player coming into the slot position, or how the outside wide receiver will be impacted by this slot injury, when really it's the guy filling in for him that's going to get the biggest role change, more snaps. In the NBA, we can translate that over to minutes and potential shots and things like that. We want to just see who's going to get the biggest role change in terms of pretty much minutes. Or if they're sliding from the shooting guard position to point guard, like we've seen LeBron do this year, like we've seen Bradley Beal do this year, like we've seen Devin Booker do this year in terms of injuries, that's what you want to be targeting, role changes. So it's not always the guys filling in directly for the injuries. So yeah, you could use ownership projections. You can try and just generate it based on how you're feeling. Probably how you're feeling is what the public's going to feel like, who's getting covered the most in the media in terms of picks videos, which are just trashy, in my opinion. So a couple other things, same price syndrome. If two people are priced at the same price, especially if they play the same position. So let's see if we have any here. 7,200, 7,200. So not the same position, but one of these guys will garner more ownership. It's usually if they play the same position, but one of them is going to be left out. People will pile on to the more attractive option. In this case, it'll probably be Larry Nance if we get news that Kevin Love isn't playing a lot, whatever it might be. That automatically makes the other guy, he's priced at the same price point, so he's probably has similar upside, right? DraftKings knows what they're doing. If he's at a lower ownership, that's already an automatic easy pivot because they're the same price. You don't have to change anything else about your lineup. The other thing is discount pricing. So if somebody's at a solid $7,000, the guy right below them and right above them will usually see more ownership. This is more relevant in the NFL, but also the NBA if there's no immediate news making these guys better options, because people feel like they're getting a discount here, or they feel like they're getting more bang for their buck at 7,100. These even prices, there's been studies, Jonathan Bale's books looks at these, for DFS. It's very interesting, and it makes sense, right? You feel like you're getting a discount. All prices are $9.99, $9.95 instead of $10 because people think they're getting a discount. It's a discount effect. So I'll just finish by saying, Contrarian, you have to take all these things into account. There's much more you could take into account. It depends on the slate, as always. How are you going to start your builds, as always, like we talked about yesterday. But don't get too caught up in ownership. I love ownership. I love looking at it. I love seeing where you can get potential leverage, right? But these are projections, one, so they're not always correct. And two, you don't need to be playing the lower. If you're comparing two guys with each other and you're doing that at multiple spots in your lineup, you shouldn't be taking the lower owned guy in all those situations, right? You should be taking the best player in all those situations. And if there's one where you feel a little bit iffy about, then take the lower owned guy. It should be sort of like a deciding factor, not the main factor. So that's pretty much it, guys, in terms of ownership, in terms of being contrarian in the NBA. You can download the PDF. If you made it all the way through, let me know down below in the comments that you made it all the way through. I want to personally thank you. I greatly, greatly appreciate you guys' support. It honestly means the world to me that we're able to grow this much. We're gaining attraction. People are noticing us, and that's all because of you guys. So like this video. If you subscribe today, let me know in the comments. And if you made it all the way through, also let me know in the comments. My name is Sal Vetri. NBA's back tomorrow, which I'm filming this on a Tuesday, so 2 days, but when you watch this, it'll be the next day. Tune in for our videos. We're going to have an update for the NBA. Projections will be out. Thank you guys so much. I'm like fighting a burp right now. This is terrible. My name's Sal. You already know that. Peace out, YouTube.